What's going on, everybody? It is that time again. The Sooners Illustrated Podcast, episode 187.
187.
On this Monday, June 30th, 2025. Josh Callaway, James D. Jackson, Tom Green with you on a Monday. 61 days from the kickoff of Oklahoma's 2025 football season. Exactly 2 months from the opener, June 30th. August 30th. The calendar flips to July starting tomorrow. SEC Media Days on the horizon. We're continuing to look ahead. We're getting a little bit closer and closer looking ahead to the start of the season. We're going to do some schedule talk today, a little schedule breakdown for Oklahoma in 2025. What are the toughest games? What are the biggest games? What do we think of it overall? Do a little schedule talk as we're 2 months away. I should say, not 2 weeks, 2 months away from the start of the season. We'll also wrap up a little bit of recruiting news over the weekend as well, and a little bit of basketball talk. Also, NBA draft last week. We'll kind of put a bow on that. Also, with you guys on a Monday as we continue to navigate the summer. Gentlemen, how are we feeling about things? I mean, it's about to be July, 4th of July weekend coming up. Media Day's right around the corner. It always kind of feels like 4th of July weekend is one of those kind of, pillars of the summer of getting a little bit closer to fall camp and the season, all that good stuff. But just like that, June come and gone. How are we feeling? We enjoying the summer so far? We're getting ready, though. We're getting the mind right.
Yeah, I mean, excited that things are around the corner, but it's also kind of surreal how quickly it approaches. I was out to dinner a couple nights ago with a couple other of the Oklahoma media guys, and we were just talking about it. It's like, man, 2 weeks from now, we're going to be in Atlanta getting ready for SEC Media Days. We're like a month away from fall camp. It's like, where does the off season go?
Yeah, I mean, this is like 4th of July is kind of like the last time to really wind down and just enjoy your time pretty much before you have to ramp up and get ready for the football season. So yeah, I'm enjoying it right now. Obviously, OKC Thunder getting this championship, that helps out a lot. Kind of just get celebrate with the family and stuff like that. Just keep on pushing from there. So pretty good.
No doubt. No, I mean, obviously, we're operating under the college football calendar, but a thing that's kind of crazy is that the NFL Hall of Fame game, right? I mean, the first preseason game, July 31st. I mean, that's 4 weeks away. That's just a shade over a month, obviously. So it's kind of one of those things. We still got time. There's still summer. I'm not wishing away the summer. I love the summer, but we're moving closer and closer ever so rapidly. June into the rear view after today, and like I said, we're exactly 2 months from the opener. Tom had a schedule scouting report breakdown series that he did over on Sooners Illustrated. It's a great series, great way to kind of get a little preview of the season ahead. He went through each opponent and kind of gave a layout of what they have coming back and just kind of a catch-up basically on each team. That's on Sooners Illustrated. Not going anywhere. I recommend you go check out all 12 of those to kind of get your mind right and kind of look ahead to the season. I figured let's do a little schedule talk. We're 2 months out. Tom had that series that just wrapped up. Let's break it down a little bit. Let me start with just this way. Toughest game. Easy question, maybe. For you guys, when you look at the schedule, what's the one that sticks out the most as the toughest? Not necessarily the biggest. We'll do that in a second. But the toughest. The game that you maybe feel like Oklahoma will have the hardest time to get for whatever reason it may be. I'm curious your guys' thoughts there because, we talked about it a lot last year and it's the same this year. The SEC schedule is brutal. I feel like these conversations were a lot harder to have in the Big 12 because the answer was Texas to these every time. Not the case in the SEC. For you guys, what stands out as the most difficult game that Oklahoma will have to deal with this year?
Yeah, to me, it's pretty easy. It's Alabama in November, that second weekend of November. I know that some people might roll their eyes a little bit just because Oklahoma beat Alabama last year. That was their signature win in a pretty disappointing season. Yeah. But you look at it this way: Alabama is 65-3 at home over the last decade. Those 3 losses were to Texas in 2023 in that non-conference game early in the season, that ridiculous LSU team in 2019 that just ran the table and made everybody look embarrassed, and then Ole Miss in 2015 when Hugh Freeze was still there and was giving Nick Saban fits with his offense. But combine what Alabama's been able to do at home over the last decade, and they might have one of the best offensive lines in the country. But, with Caden Proctor, Parker Brailsford, Jaden Roberts, all guys that are first or second round picks probably next year. They have probably the second best wide receiver in the country in Ryan Williams, right there behind Jeremiah Schmitt at Ohio State. And then they have 2 potential first rounders on the defensive line in Tim Keenan III and LT Overton off the edge there. Like this defense is very good. Obviously, there's some questions at quarterback, replacing Jalen Milroe and, Ty Simpson stepping in there. But just between the home field advantage that Alabama's built and the talent on that team, I mean, they entered the season as I think they're tied with Ohio State as like the third best odds to win the national championship this year, according to ESPN's Football Power Index. So, I mean, that is going to be a tough game during what will be the toughest month of the schedule for Oklahoma when you look at that November slate.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I still think it's Texas, even with this schedule. I still think it's Texas going to be the toughest game on the schedule, given what they have coming and, Arch Manning leading the way for them. They got a couple of good guys, Anthony Hill Jr. on the defensive side of the ball. Those type of players can be difference makers if they find their stride. And I think by that time of the season, it won't just be, the new guys on the field. It'll be like, for Arch Manning in point particular, it'll be somebody who's kind of finding his rhythm at that point because he played a little bit last year as well. And so it's going to add a little bit more to it, a little bit more difficulty to a team that has a really good quarterback and probably have one of the best defenses in the country as well. And they have the momentum, I feel like, in the Red River rivalry over the last couple of years from what they've done just the last 3 years or so. Oklahoma's got one, but there's been two really big lopsided wins for Texas. And I think all that's going to play a factor into this. I think that's what still makes them the toughest, even in the SEC, where a lot of things can change week by week because everybody can be beat by anybody. But I think Texas is the toughest game on the schedule for Oklahoma this season.
Yeah, both really strong arguments for both of those. And I promise this is not for the sake of for podcast conversation. I genuinely had a different pick. So this was all natural. This was organic, whatever word I'm looking for. I got Tennessee. I'm a big schedule guy as far as like the feng shui of a schedule. I strongly considered Alabama, but the thing that kept me is that they have a bye week before Alabama. Texas is neutral site. Tennessee, they got to go to Knoxville, which I've never been personally, but people who, whether it's guys who cover Oklahoma in 2015 when they went there or just college football media in general, talk about Knoxville and Tennessee in Neyland Stadium as one of the 2 or 3 toughest places to play in the sport. We know that's going to be either an afternoon or a night game, so that adds, you think, probably night game as long as OU's having an okay season. And look where it lands on the schedule. November 1st, it's the end of a 5 straight week stretch of playing without a bye. And the 3 games before, Texas, at South Carolina, and then Ole Miss at home, and then you go out to Knoxville. Like, it's the end of a long stretch of tough games. So when I look at the schedule, I don't worry about the Nico Iamaleava thing. He didn't, he had an okay season. I still thought there was a lot of upside there. I think they're going to be just fine offensively with Josh Heupel in that place. And then again, where it lands on the schedule, you have no time to like pre-prepare. Texas, you play a bye week right before, and then it's actually Kent State the week before and a bye week before that. So like there's a buffer.
2 bye weeks.
Yeah, 2 bye weeks, exactly. Bama, there's a bye week before. Tennessee's the end of a 5-week stretch of playing, and it's in Knoxville, So that's the one I circled to me the most of like that. If you're making me put like win probabilities on all these games, that would probably be my lowest win probability of any of the games. So that's where it lands for me. But that's the SEC. There's a lot of tough ones on here. I almost said South Carolina, but if South Carolina was one that I feel like the morning kick is a little bit of a help there, but similar argument in terms of where it lands on the schedule. It's right after the Texas game in Columbia. That one was a serious contender for me too. There's a lot of tough games on here. It's the SEC, right?
How do we really feel about Oklahoma after a bye week though? From what we've seen the last couple of seasons right now.
That's fair.
That's a question that has to be on the thing.
They haven't been good after byes.
Yeah, they haven't been really good. So maybe with Ben Arbuckle, maybe that kind of helps out the offense a little bit here, and we'll see. Bringing in new guys, but I think it plays a factor as well in terms of how to decide what this is so far away.
Absolutely. What about biggest game? Now, again, this is a slightly different convo. It can be the same answer, but biggest game, most important. This is the game Oklahoma has to win. And now there's a lot of different directions you can take it. You can go early and say, like, for setting the tone for the season, or just PR. It'll determine, like, it's it could be one of those tweener games in terms of like, might be the difference between 8 wins and 9 wins or 7 and 8 or whatever. Whatever direction you want to take it. What's the game you circle as cannot lose this one, or most important game to win? Obviously, removing the obvious of like, you can't lose to Illinois State, but you're not going to say that for this. What biggest game for you guys this upcoming year?
Yeah, I mean, for me, the most important game, the way I view it, it's Texas. I mean, yeah, it's your biggest rival, especially with the way the series has gone the last few years. With two of those lopsided losses, like James mentioned. I mean, this is your opportunity to try to get back, and it's a huge game every single year. It's a difficult game every single year, and I mean, to go off of James's point again, I think it's probably the second toughest game on their schedule behind that Alabama game. But you look at the rivalry and just how anything can kind of happen in this game. I know that hasn't necessarily been the case the last few years, except what we saw in 2023 with Dylan Gabriel's heroics there. But I mean, it's an opportunity against a team that is heading into the season as the preseason favorite to win the national championship. I think they have like a 34% chance to win it all, according to FPI. So, I mean, to me, that's the most important game when you factor in just how talented Texas is this year, the expectations the Longhorns have coming off of a semifinal appearance in the CFP last year, and then the rivalry of it all. So for me, that's the most important game on this schedule. Though I would argue that the game that you probably can't afford to lose is that Auburn game to open SEC play.
Mm-hmm. And that's kind of like when you ask the other questions, it kind of changed how I thought about the question initially. Because I feel like I was going to go South Carolina, but also was like, well, Michigan could be it as well, because you have to get off to a fast start here, given the schedule that you have down the line, especially in that November circuit situation. So, I mean, I want to stay with that and go with Michigan. I think that's a game that you cannot – you got to win that one, because you got to get off to a good start given this schedule. And you got to build that momentum and show pretty much the country, because it's going to be a primetime game, show the country that bringing in Ben Arbuckle and bringing in John Mateer, that those are going to be, really big wins for you. And, bringing in Jaden Ott, that's going to really change the way this Oklahoma football team, looks. And I think that can set a tone for the rest of the season. And so I think Michigan is the biggest game, just because of where it's at and how it can set the tone for the rest of the season for Oklahoma.
No, you're not going to get a strong counter argument for me on either of those. Texas, I think at the very least, they have to be competitive in the Cotton Bowl. I mean, obviously this great, humongous win, the signature win of the Brent Venables era in 2023, surrounded by two just black eyes. I mean, just two of the worst Oklahoma football games, period, this millennium. I mean, to get beat by Texas by damn near 50 points in his first year, and then last year, that debacle, like, you have to at least put out a good showing. At least. Obviously, Oklahoma fans want to win that game every year, but at least you got to be in it, right? It can't be like it's been. I've been beating the drum for Michigan all year as well, for the same reason James said. Huge game in week 2 at home, set the tone for the season. I think I'm actually going to go, though, with the one that Tom kind of, touched on, which is Auburn. I'm not backing off the Michigan thing, because I still completely believe that. Like, if they lose to Michigan in week 2 at home, panic button will be pressed, right? I think everyone's going to do that. But that being said, as time has gone on, I could kind of see a scenario where, as long as they're in the Michigan game, that there will be a little bit of like, it's the second game, and they played Illinois State in the first game. So, like, it's their first real competition with Ben Arbuckle and John Mateer. That argument won't be there for Auburn. And obviously there's the Jackson Arnold element. If Jackson Arnold comes into Norman and beats Oklahoma, I mean, you burn it down. It's over. The season is over as far as I'm concerned. I mean, you can't. I mean, you just can't. And also, it's the first SEC game of the year, right? I mean, so it's got that going for it, too, where it's like the SEC schedule's so hard, you got to get off 1-0 at home against Auburn, who, again, is going to be a good team and has got players, but that's a team you beat last year in their place, and you would imagine that you're better. You're hoping to be a lot better. And if you're going to have a respectable year in the SEC, you just kind of have to beat Auburn at home. Like, you just have to. So I kind of look at Auburn as like, that's the game that if you told me right now they lose it, I'm saying, it's going to be probably a rough year then. You know what I mean? Like, it's one of those, like, it's a big hinge game for me. I kind of look at Auburn. Got to have that one. Got to have it.
The nightmare scenario is not just like Jackson Arnold coming in and beating Oklahoma in his return. It's Jackson Arnold coming in and doing it while like Nick Anderson and Bauer Sharp have like monster games or something. Like, that would be the nightmare scenario where you're just like, like, this season is cursed off the bat.
Yeah, those guys coming back. Missouri would be like one of those that like Oklahoma can't lose to this year too, right?
Sure.
Like, that's like you feel like Oklahoma's better than them on paper coming into it. And you kind of felt like that way last year too, but they found a way, it seems like, to lose that game, even after they had such a good defensive series back to back, and it just couldn't get over the hump. I think that's another team that you can't lose to in this season.
So to kind of final thoughts, I guess, finishing touch on the schedule. I mean, last year a lot was made about how tough the schedule is, and there was some thought that it would maybe be a touch easier than next year because you get the extra home game. Some of these teams wouldn't be quite as good. It feels like the sentiment, at least around here, has been the schedule's tougher this year. I guess for you, just to kind of final thoughts on the schedule as a whole, like what's a realistic win number? Do you find it to be more challenging than last year's slate? About the same? I mean, you had Michigan in the non-con, but it is at home. You do get the extra home game. Last year, they only had 3 SEC home games. You get 4 this time. I guess kind of just overall difficulty of the schedule for you guys to kind of put the finishing touches here. And then again, if you want to broach a win number, not that you think they would get, but that they should get, to feel good about it, this upcoming fall. Because that's been a big convo too. Like, what number of wins does Brent Venables need to keep his job? I've been asked that a bunch of times. I never really know totally what to say. It's like 8, 9, For you though, the schedule as a whole compared to last year, what do you guys kind of think about it as a whole?
Yeah, I mean, as we stand here 2 months before the start of the season, I think looking at the schedule, I think it's overall tougher than last year's schedule. Yeah. Even though you're 2 of your non-conference games are against 2 of the worst teams in FBS and then an FCS team. Michigan should be better than it was last year because you're getting them in the second year of Sherrone Moore. Same thing with Alabama. They're in year 2 now with Kalen DeBoer and probably, comparable talent to where they were last year, but some guys that have a little bit more experience. Like I went over with the, how they rank in just some of those key position groups. So I think Alabama is going to be tougher. You look at LSU; they've got one of the best quarterbacks in the country, and they beat you last year, in their place, and that's going to be another end of season game that's going to have some implications one way or the other for those teams. South Carolina, I'd expect to maybe be better just because you're getting a more developed Lenora Sellers. Dylan Stewart coming off the edge for them is really, really talented. Nick Harbor coming back there and kind of blossoming more at wide receiver. And again, we talked about Texas. We talked about Auburn. Tennessee. I don't know if they're going to be as good as they were last season, but it's still going to be tough playing at Neyland. Ole Miss should still be really solid, but you're getting them at home this time. I just think up and down, this schedule's a little bit tougher because even some of the teams that were maybe had down years last year are in a second year of a coach's program, where last year was more of year 0 for some of those guys. Yeah. But as far as win total, I think an 8-win season should be considered a success. It also depends on what those 4 losses are. I mean, context always matters. Sure. You can't just slap a number on it.
How competitive they were in the losses too.
Yeah, and that too. Yeah, margin of victor, not margin of victory, but margin of defeat in those losses. Which games you lost to who? But I think an 8-win season should be considered a success, considering the difficulty of the schedule and all the new pieces that Oklahoma's incorporating.
Yeah, I think this schedule's a little bit more difficult because of that Michigan game. Like you said, Josh, there was a runway last year that Oklahoma had to really try to figure things out, and frankly, they just didn't look really good, and was still able to ease their way through it. Even with the way they were playing and how bad they were playing in a couple of those games, it didn't feel like they were dominating, and they still were able to win those games. I don't think they can necessarily do that so much this year because of what Michigan is going to bring to the schedule. But I also think, along with saying all that, is I think Oklahoma's more equipped to handle this tougher schedule this time around, which is actually a good sign for what they've done in the offseason, with the additions they brought in that we've talked about to ad nauseum at this point in time. But so just looking at that, I think it'll work out much better for Oklahoma, which is why I think I said 9 wins on a podcast or 2 ago about Oklahoma's season. I think 9 wins is what I was looking at because, I mean, John Mateer, Oklahoma's going to have the best quarterback in a lot of these games on the field. And that wasn't the case last year. And I think that changes a lot. I mean, LSU's Garrett Nussmeier, Arch Manning from Texas, maybe. I mean, we're not entirely sure. Lenore Sellers, how good is he going to be? Like Tom said, with the way he's been developing so far in this offseason. I mean, those are kind of the 3 that you kind of look at and say, maybe he could be better than John Mateer. But I think right now it looks like John Mateer is going to be really good for Oklahoma overall. So I think that makes it a better situation for Oklahoma that they're more equipped to handle this tougher schedule this time around.
Yeah. No, it's a tough slate, obviously, and we knew it would be. I do think, I go back and forth on if I find it more difficult or not from a year ago, because you do have the extra home game, but you throw Michigan in there. You do have to go to Temple. I think Temple's terrible, but it is a road game as opposed to a home game. So you add that. I don't know. I mean, the first 6 games lines up about as good as you could hope. I've generally speaking, as far as the difficulty of it, like we mentioned, you play Kent State before Texas, and a bye before that. You get Michigan at home. You get Auburn at home. But the second half of the year, the back 6 are just brutal. I mean, it's just brutal. I mean, outside of Missouri at home, is there any of those that you feel like really confident that they should win? I mean, obviously you want to think that they'll win at home against Ole Miss, and you hope you can beat LSU at home. But like, those are the last 6 games of the year: 2 Columbia, 2 Tuscaloosa, 2 Knoxville. It is a rough. I mean, Tom kind of touched on earlier. November is just a gauntlet. Just an absolute gauntlet. So it's a tough schedule. I think you need to win 8 is probably what you're shooting for. Again, context. There's nuance to it. Are they competitive in the losses? Who do they beat? Right. But I think you're shooting for 8. And if you can get to 9, you're probably in the fringe of the playoff combo. Again, depending on how things go. Right. So it's a rough schedule. This is what you signed up for in the SEC. We'll see how it kind of swings moving forward and they get off this grouping, but just like it was last year, it's every bit as brutal as last year, even with the 1 less road game. It's daunting. It's definitely daunting.
I view 9 wins as like it was a massive success this season. I think 8 is like you did everything you were supposed to do. Like when you look at it on paper, I think that's where it's at. So that's kind of how I see it. I think 9 wins is everything. It was a really, really good season overall. I mean, you did everything.
If you win 9, I even if the 3 games are blowouts, you probably feel pretty good about it. I mean, again, there's context to everything, but 9 is a good number.
Mm-hmm.
Any final thoughts there, Tom?
No, I mean, I agree. I mean, like I said, like if you get to 9 games, especially if you can beat a Texas or an Alabama in there, like you're going to be in the playoff discussion, at least late in the year. Maybe not, at the end of the regular season, but you will
at least in November. Yeah, you feel like you have a shot. Yeah.
And I think that should be the goal. Like, you want to be competitive going into that gauntlet of in November. Put yourself in position to be in position. To borrow a Porter Moser phrase.
Yeah, good, well used. We're getting excited. 2 months from today is the opener. 61 days until kickoff. We're getting closer every little by little. Obviously, recruiting continues to be at the forefront. It's that time of year, middle of summer. Most of the recruiting convo, obviously, I save for Colin on Thursdays. The recruiting shows have been really, really good this summer. Colin's had so much info and so much insight. I did want to bring up, though, for you guys, they did make another addition over the weekend. Deacon Schmitt, 14th commit in 2026, 4-star offensive lineman. I know a lot of fans have been freaking out about all the 3 stars, doing that whole thing. Well, Deacon Schmitt's a 4. So there you go. From Windsor, Colorado. They go into Colorado and they get a guy who obviously Colorado was one of the finalists. Alabama was also one of the 3 finalists there to go along with Oklahoma. He ends up going with the Sooners, obviously. Any thoughts here, guys, for you? I mean, you when you lost Will Conroy, when he flipped to North Carolina, it felt like there was some emphasis like, okay, that's probably okay as long as you can hit on some of these other guys, Deacon Schmitt included. And they did that. He goes with Noah Best. Good little duo there. Some thoughts, though, about the addition of bringing Deacon Schmitt into that 26 class.
Yeah, I mean, like you mentioned, a nice little combination there on the offensive line with this class. We've talked about the importance of kind of backfilling the offensive line through recruiting after a few down years there. And they seem to be doing that, building off of, these last 2 classes and now this coming class, getting a pair of blue chip guys coming in there to kind of help replenish that depth in Bill Bedenbaugh's room. Class is still ranked number 36 in the country. Still got work to do, between now and December. But also, I mean, look, a lot of recruiting, at least like the optics of it, is about momentum. And this was a kind of an upswing after, Oklahoma seemed to miss on a few guys last week.
Sure.
So kind of getting back on that horse and keeping the momentum going. Like we talked about, they've done a pretty good job this summer of getting that 2026 class back on the right track after a slow start. And I think Deacon Schmitt just, coming in there over the weekend is another nice ad for them.
Yeah, I think it was a really big recruiting win for Coach Beatonbow in Oklahoma overall. I mean, there's a lot of talk about how Oklahoma hasn't been able to get a commit from the 2026 class from their in-state, guys. They haven't been able to do that yet. And they go out to Colorado and take one of theirs, and one of their best ones. And I think it showed a lot to what they really offered him and what they showed him, because I talked to him after his visit, and he said, man, they made me feel like a priority. Like, he talked to Jim Nagy, Bill Beatonbow, Brent Venables. There was so many good things he had to say about Oklahoma. And even after that visit, which he went on with Noah Best and Desmond Green, some of the targets they were going after at the time, Noah Best committed soon after. And it was like, okay. And Deacon Schmitt has said, okay, I saw that. I'm actually consider that along when I go with what I decide as well, to consider what he had done. And so Oklahoma gets him over, Colorado and Alabama, just from what they did at that visit, what they showed him that they can do development wise, because during that visit, they did film study with Bill Beatonbow. Like, that was one of the things that they did before they went to their, in-home visit with Brent Venables, and then got to hang out with the Boz, which is a very big, big deal for some of those guys. I mean, that's pretty cool situation. So it's a really big recruiting win for Oklahoma, just because you saw what they were able to do on his official visit, how they were to convince him and Noah Best to pretty much commit at this time. And I think that's a good start for them.
Absolutely. To your point, composite #1 player in Colorado.
Yeah.
And obviously Colorado was really the two finalists. It was really between Oklahoma and Colorado whenever Saturday came. And, that's not nothing. I know Oklahoma fans will probably say we should be able to beat Colorado, but Colorado is not Colorado that you and I know, right? I mean, they have a ton of momentum with Deion Sanders. Like, they're not your father's Colorado right now, okay? You have to kind of look at it a little bit differently. So to go pull him out of the state whenever, Prime and that, Buffalo's program was in on him is a good win. And he's a guy that I think OU fans will be excited to get to know more about too as time goes on. The Brandon Huffman piece, which is for our VIP members over on Sooners Illustrated, just had a bunch of quotes from Deacon, and there were some really good ones in there. I love that he said
Bo needs his bodyguard.
That's awesome. This was one too. I mean, you can give not credit, but like score one for Bo Bentley here. Like, this seems like a guy who wants to play with Bo Bentley. We talked about that last week. Like, to get especially offensive players, they need to know who their quarterback is, and they have a good one in Bo Bentley that these other guys know. And so Deacon Schmitt seemed like someone who was in on Bo Bentley, and that certainly plays a part in there as well. So, good pickup here. Again, you go with Noah Best. We'll see what else happens in that offensive line class. But even right there, that's a couple of 4-star guys who both have a ton of upside to go with the class you just signed, obviously with Fasusi, Foje, and all that. So good stuff right now on the offensive line recruiting front. And we'll get more into Deacon and kind of what else is going on, certainly with Colin later this week. Those recruiting shows are must listens / watches right now. Tons of info there. We'll talk more about Deacon. And then, of course, there's a lot more commits coming up, commitment dates coming up, I should say, in the early part of July. There's a ton. It feels like from like the 3rd to like the 12th, there's like one every day. It seems like, at least. So we'll get into a lot of that with Colin later this week. So be sure to tune in there. But good pickup here for Deacon Schmitt. Like Tom said, class still a little on the small side with 14 guys. More will be added. Mid-30s in the rankings, but that's all will be, sorted out over the next 6 months before signing day. Over to basketball before we get out of here. NBA draft was last week. Kind of put a bow on that real quick. Jeremiah Fears goes number 7 to the Pelicans, which, coincidentally was where Buddy Hield went, 9 years ago. Almost the same pick. He was number 6. Fears goes number 7. Just thoughts here, I guess, about the landing spot and kind of the NBA draft night for Fears overall. They had the crimson suit on. Porter Moser was there with them. So a nice kind of little bit of pumping of PR for the OU basketball program. But just thoughts on where he landed, the fit, kind of all of it for Fears as he goes 7 to New Orleans.
Well, we want to start with the fit. That 3-piece crimson Gucci suit was
I think
one of the sharper looks on draft night there, especially with the Fears chain and the zero.
The zero Fears, yeah.
But yeah, no, I mean, look, we all expected him to probably be a top 10 pick. Most of the mock drafts had him going anywhere from 5th to 8th. I personally think he would have been better suited if Brooklyn had taken him. I just think that would have been a better situation for him. New Orleans is kind of a tough spot right now.
Sure.
not sure they know completely what they're doing with that roster, especially with, kind of some questions looming over, Zion and everything going on over there. But to get Jeremiah Fears and then also be able to trade up and get Derek Queen, I think that gives them two really good young players to kind of build around. Interesting to see kind of how that works out with them. But I mean, for Jeremiah Fears, I mean, I'm thrilled for him. I mean, like, he did what he wanted to accomplish. He enrolled at Oklahoma a year early. He bet on himself. He put in the work. He developed into a lottery pick. He's the fourth top 10 pick for Oklahoma since 2009. First player drafted for Oklahoma since Trey in 2018. So I mean, it's huge for him. I think he's going to be a really good player. He's obviously got, still some development to do with his shot, but he looks bigger. One of the quickest guys around that handles like a yo-yo, and he just does a good job of, attacking the rim and drawing contact. And I think that's where he's going to kind of make his name early on between that and his vision on the court.
Yeah, I mean, I like where he's going because he gets to go somewhere where he can develop. Either if it was Brooklyn or New Orleans, I think he was going to have that chance. And so him getting the opportunity is what's the biggest thing, because he could have gone to a different team where he was coming off the bench a little bit more. I think over here with some of the injuries that they have, DeJounte Murray with the Achilles, I think he gets to pretty much get to play and show what he can do pretty early on. I think that's a good thing for him. They've traded for Jordan Poole, isn't that right? They traded for Jordan Poole, and so what can those two guys do? What can he learn from Jordan Poole that he can help even to an already vast offensive game that he has and that we've seen at Oklahoma? What can he learn from that? So I think it's going to be a good situation for him overall, just because of that, getting to develop and bringing in other guys like that. So I think that's good for him.
Yeah, no, really happy for Jeremiah. I mean, you go in the top 10, that's really cool. It's a heck of an achievement. 1 year at OU. I don't, to be totally honest, I don't love the fit. I mean, like Tom said, New Orleans is one of those franchises that's just kind of, I don't know what they're doing, and their star player doesn't really want to be there, with Zion, so when you're going to the lottery, you're probably going somewhere that's not winning, right? I mean, so that's kind of a given. But in that 5 to 8 stretch where we kind of all thought he would land, I kind of talked myself into all the other 3. And it was really just like, maybe don't go to New Orleans, though. And, of course, that's where he wound up. Yeah. But, yeah, I mean, if he's good enough, I'm sure he'll make it. They do have some pieces there, to both your guys' point. Like, it's not a complete lost cause or anything, but it's just kind of it's kind of like, ironically, and I don't mean it as a ripping on New Orleans, kind of a similar feeling with Danny Stutzman going to the Saints in football. It was kind of like, just, that franchise know what they're doing. You know what I mean? It's kind of one of those kind of situations. But yeah, I mean, not a bad spot for him. I honestly thought the bigger takeaway was just that it was a big night for OU. I mean, yeah, it's really cool that Jeremiah Fears, who was at OU for what, like 6 months, 7 months, like not long. I mean, he came in the summer. He was there for one season.
He was a late arrival in the summer too.
Yeah, right. And he wears a crimson suit for OU. He had Porter Moser there with him. He, pumped Oklahoma basketball in his little interview on the broadcast afterward. Like, that's kind of cool. I mean, that Jeremiah, even though he was at OU a very short time, and it was kind of really just a situation of circumstance, right? I mean, he was committed to Illinois, and then they said, we don't have a spot for you. You have to reclassify it up. He ends up at OU. It's cool for OU that it seems, and we'll see how time goes on, but it seems that Jeremiah is interested in, maintaining a relationship with the program and kind of pumping up OU basketball, which you need, right? You need more of that. Trey Young does it, and now you need Jeremiah Fears to do it, So I thought that was kind of a cool thing for OU fans to kind of feel like this guy actually kind of cares about OU basketball, which is cool and could be helpful down the road. I mean, you see what Trey Young is doing for OU basketball right now. So
if you guys were watching the draft, just like where they had the tables positioned in that little kind of green room area in front of the stage, Porter Moser got a lot of screen time, man, because his seat was like right there, next to. Right by the steps going up to the stage. Yeah. Like every time a player got drafted, you see Porter Moser right there, kind of looking over his shoulder as the player's walking up. So Porter definitely got some good exposure. The program got some good exposure, and being able to top 4 first, top 10 picks in the last 16 years is pretty big for the program, even if Jeremiah is the first draft pick since 2018.
The only unfortunate thing for OU right now is that there's no graphic that gets Blake Griffin and Austin Reeves both on the graphic. because like no matter what, it's like Sooners in the NBA, Blake Griffin's retired. Sooners drafted, Austin Reeves was technically undrafted. It's like you can't quite get them both on a graphic.
Mm-hmm.
It's like every time there's a graphic, it's like where Austin Reeves should be on this somehow, but there's no like filter to get them both on. But digress.
He declined it, man. He declined it.
He did. He could have been drafted.
Yeah,
he made the right move. Could you argue that he didn't make the right move? I mean, he's
good.
Like,
he's good.
We'll see where he winds up after this offseason, but obviously it worked out for Austin Reeves just fine. I think that's it. I do want to ask Tom. Nothing on Jalen Moore, right?
No, I haven't seen anything.
I was like, I didn't miss this, right? I mean, we knew going in with the Achilles tear that was going to be a rough spot. I didn't know how that was going to work out for him, but as far as I know, he has not been like picked up by anybody.
Yeah, I haven't seen him get picked up. I haven't checked today. But I mean, I think it's gonna be one of those things where if he does get a shot, it might be a little bit down the line after he,
Can he enter the draft again?
I'm not sure. I mean, he'll definitely have an opportunity for a team to sign him, whether it's to like an Exhibit 10 contract that's kind of non-guaranteed, and give him a chance to prove himself, or once he gets cleared after some rehabbing, maybe a shot in the G League and opportunity to get a two-way deal or work his way up. But I hope he gets a shot somewhere, man.
Yeah.
I mean, I have a lot of respect for Jalen, just the way he kind of carried himself both on and off the court during his 2 years at Oklahoma, the way he kind of developed his game after, being a bit player at Georgia Tech and developing into, a leader and a, really solid player who was excelling while playing out of position at the 4 there for Oklahoma. So I wish the best for him and a speedy recovery, and hope he gets a chance once he's healthy.
100%. Just horrible timing on the injury and everything. We talked about this last week, but hopefully Jalen can get healthy. I could be way off. I think that the team, it was the Spurs, right, that he was working out for when he got hurt. I think the Spurs are like somewhat obligated to help him with his like recovery, I think. So hopefully, he can get back up on his feet, and a team can give him a shot and he'll make the most of it, I'm sure. So yeah, that's an unfortunate thing with Jalen, but we'll keep an eye on that, and we'll obviously let you know over on Sooners Illustrated if there's any news on that front for him as he tries to find his way and land somewhere and get a shot at some point down the road. Obviously, we'll let you know. I think that's it, though, for today's program. Again, be back with Callaway this week on Thursday. Going to have a lot of crew stuff to get into there. Again, we'll talk more about Deacon Schmitt as well as just kind of everything that's coming up. A lot more commit dates are on the way. So stay plugged in to Sooners Illustrated. Subscribe, oklahoma247sports.com, and be able to be sure to tune in again on Thursday. We're back on Monday. It'll just be James and I next Monday. We'll kind of continue to look ahead to the start of the season a little bit, recap anything else going on. Diamond sports, basketball, whatever else there is to get into. We'll certainly get into it next Monday. The week after that is Media Days week. So we're getting closer. We're moving into July here and navigating the summer. But I think that is it for now. Gentlemen, appreciate you as always. For Tom Green, James E. Jackson, I'm Josh Callaway. We'll see you back here next time, as always, on Thursday on the Sooners Illustrated podcast.
See you.